Hello. So let me ask you about your Google Drive. Is it all messy? Is it like files and folders all over the place? Or like you can't find stuff when you really want it? Or is it like, you've got my drive and shared with me and you're like, ugh, where is everything? I know. There's a lot of us like this. It's partially great that we've got this thing called Google Drive where we can share everything. But it's right. Am I right? It's completely changed the rules of the game here when it comes to being able to work with colleagues, work in a group, work at a school. I mean, it's not only obviously for education, everybody is using it. But the problem when everybody uses it is that we've got so many resources shared with us that it gets a little out of control, right? I know. So what I'm going to show you today, spend about 15 minutes with me if you'd like, and I'm going to give you about 6 or 7 tips as to how to reorganize what you've got already there as a result of a long school year, and how you can maybe keep it then organized for next year. So it's kind of a mix between reorganizing and keeping it organized for next year. So let's just jump right in. I wanted to, as you can see right here on the screen, there's a link to the blog post that I wrote that is on a similar topic. It gives step-by-step instructions as well as a lot of video tutorials as to how you can do this a little bit better. How you can, if you really want to be able to see every single step of what I'm describing here today, please feel free to go to my website to go to that particular blog post because it'll give you even more instructions than this video. So I hope it's helpful. All right, so this is what I was going to say. Let's start with this one particular idea. First of all, there's the difference between my drive and shared with me. Let me just start right there. My drive is very different than shared with me. My drive is anything that you create. It automatically defaults to being located somewhere within your Google Drive, my drive. Shared with me is anything that somebody else creates and shares with you. Obviously, that's why it's called shared with me, right? So, so normally what I say to people that are having trouble keeping it all organized is stay away from that menu choice that is called share with me. Just stay away from there. What you should do is when somebody shares a document with you, you know how you get an email and it says, Maria shared this particular document with you. Open up the document right there and you will see that there's an option called, here I'm going to show it what it looks like. There's an option called Add Shortcut to Drive. Now, on that particular screenshot you're seeing, that's where you've got a couple of different ways that you can choose that option. When you're looking at the whole list of your files, the option is right there in the upper right-hand corner. When you're inside an actual file, when you're editing a document, that exact same symbol, it's like a little Google Drive symbol with a plus sign, that exact same symbol is right next to the title of the name of your document. And what you can do is you can choose that and then add this particular folder or document to my drive. And the advantage there is you can put it in a place that you can actually find it. Don't rename it, because if you rename it a shared document, it renames it for everybody. But what you could easily do is just put it in a folder where you can find it when you need it. If you don't do that, it's going to stay in shared with me. And the only way shared with me is organized by default is alphabetical order. So you have the choice of scrolling through the whole list of everything you've ever had shared with you in the history of Google, or memorizing every single name of every single folder so that you can type it in and manually search it. So that sucks too. I knew somebody who did that. She had a phenomenal memory, I gotta say. But I was like, what are you doing? She goes, oh, I've memorized the names of all of the folders people have shared with me. I'm like, oh my God, that's too difficult. You need to just add things to your drive. Now, it used to be called Move To or Add to My Drive. It's now called Add Shortcut to My Drive. As of this recording, I'm in May of 2021. It's not brand new, but it's kind of new that that's the way Google Drive now organizes it. What you're doing is you're not creating a separate copy of the document or the folder. You're just creating a separate access point to the exact same document or folder that just makes it easier for you to find. Okay, so summary. My Drive is what you create. Shared with Me is what other people have created and shared with you. But when anybody does that, add the shortcut to your Drive so that you can find it later and don't go scrolling through Shared with Me. Okay, that's tip number 1. So let's just jump into other tips for My Drive. You know, that whatever you create that you want to keep organized. All right. First of all, the first main tip I would give you is have a very clean folder tree. And what I mean by a folder tree is it looks something like this. It is in My Drive, you're going to create another folder that's, let's say, a class that you teach year after year called Spanish 5. That was something that I taught. Then inside that folder, you're going to create another folder called with the name of the year. Spanish 5, 2019, 2020, 2020, 2021. So here's your first tip on how to clean up your Google Drive. You're going to take everything from this year that's related to Spanish 5 and just drag it into that folder. And do you guys know how to click on multiple items at one time? What you do is you click on, let's say, a file. Let's say a file is the quiz for Unit 2. Click on that file and then hold down the Shift key and click on other files that we want to move all at the same time. So let's say now you have 5 folders all highlighted. Grab them and drag them to the folder. And that way you can move multiple folders at one or multiple files at one time into the Spanish 5 folder. And poof, you've cleaned up the whole area, right? It's kind of like opening a closet door and just like shoving everything in there. I know it works, and it'll keep it nice and clean. So at least you can do that for last year's stuff, and then starting next year, you can, or starting right now, you can kind of create a nice, clean folder tree and keep things organized that way for next year as well. So let me give you a couple of tips as to how to keep them nice and clean. Okay, that tip number 1 is to make sure you've got this folder tree. Tip number 2 would be to keep your folder names consistent. So see how there every single time I've labeled it Spanish 5. The only difference is the year. You don't want to say Spanish 5 and then make the next folder 5 Spanish. Or let's say you teach English and sometimes you name it English 3 and other times you name it ELA 4. So keep them consistent because that'll keep it right next to each other, which is even easier to find. So keep your names consistent, and if you keep them by year, it'll also keep them, or it's numerical. So obviously 2019 is going to come first, 2020 will come second. So it keeps it like in a numerical order as well. So that's tip number 2, to keep consistent with your files names and folder names because they're so much easier to find that way. The third tip kind of relates to this image as well, is to put everything in a folder. Everything in a folder. Okay. So within, let's say, Spanish 5 of this year, you're going to create, maybe as you're prepping for next year, maybe don't do this for last year because unless you have extra time. I mean, I'm like Marie Kondo too, like I love to reorganize stuff, but not a lot of people do, and you want to enjoy your summer, right? So I get it. So for next year, the one that is your class for 2021, 2022, create some empty folders right now. Create a folder for student work. Create a folder for units 1, unit 2, unit 3. Create a folder for media. Create a folder for, let's say, assessments. So any way you want to organize it, keep it all nicely, keep a folder for everything, because then you don't have loose files that you don't know whether they're in the basic My Drive or if they're in the Spanish file, folder. Like, keep a folder for everything. So keep everything in a folder. Now, if you share folders with people, that gets a little bit more difficult when it comes to sharing permissions, because if you've shared a folder with somebody, they have access to everything in that folder. So just make sure that everything in the folder is something that you want to share with them. It's a little safer to just share a document with people, and that way they just see that document and you know exactly what you're sharing. Okay. The topic of sharing permissions is probably a whole separate video, so come back for that one. Okay. Now the other thing is kind of related to the image that I showed originally, is if you are, which is how to add a shortcut to your drive. Now, I'm bringing this back up again because this is really important. If you have a document, let's say you're looking over all your documents right now and you're trying to keep them nicely organized, right? And you're saying, okay, but where should I put this document? This is something I used in both Spanish 5 and Spanish 4. So that's the beauty of a digital file folder, is that you can put it in multiple places. What you're doing when you choose Add Shortcut to Drive is you're not creating an extra copy of the document. You're creating an extra access point. It's kind of like the document's here, but I can get it from here, I can get it from here, and I can get it from here. You know what I mean? They all get back to the same document. So let's say it's a resource that you used in both Spanish 4 and Spanish 5. So grab the resource and stick it in the Spanish 4 folder. And then once it's in the Spanish 4 folder, highlight it like you can kind of see here. See the blue line? That's a highlighted document. And then click on Add Shortcut to Drive. And what you're going to do is it'll show you a nice little folder tree like I showed you in the earlier image. Go down the folder tree to find the exact Spanish 5 folder where you also used this document. And you can add a little link to that folder as well. So now you're accessing that document from either the Spanish 4 or the Spanish 5 folder. So it's really nice that way. And don't feel like you've got to go back, like, oh, I changed the Spanish 4 version, I got to go back now and change the Spanish 5 version. No, it's all the same document. So it's great. Any change you make is reflected in that same document. So that's pretty good too. All right, the other images that I'd like to show you are more related to how you can organize My Drive. Now, this may be something you want to do while you're reorganizing all of your resources, or maybe this is something that you want to do for next year as you're creating them to kind of start from scratch and create something nicely. Okay, so let me show you. I'm going to share my screen with you so that you can see these folders. The other thing is, maybe you could leave a comment for me in the thing if you can see my cursor. I'm not sure if you can see my cursor or not, but here are a couple of tips. That particular list of folders in My Drive is a perfect example of different ways that you can organize folders. You see how the very first folder says most important and there's an asterisk in front of the name? Well, in My Drive, it's the default organization is alphabetical. So the A is going to be at the top. But let's say I don't want the most important thing that I want up at top doesn't start with an A. So what I want you to do is to gosh, I hope you can hear me, is to add an asterisk in front of the folder name, and that way it'll put it all the way up to the top. So an asterisk is your first trick. Second trick is to number your folders, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Clearly, it'll keep that in order as well. So again, it's not in alphabetical order, it's just in numerical order. The third thing you can do, see how number 3 says staff assignments? That you can add a star to a folder. Highlight the folder, just like, see how student work right now is highlighted. Right click on the folder. Right click on a Mac is Control plus click, and right click on a PC is literally on the mouse, click on the right click on the right hand button rather than the left. And so you can, so when you right click on a highlighted menu item, you get a separate menu. And the little menu will show you, it looks something like this. Here, well, I'll show you that in a second. When you right click on the highlighted item, you get a separate menu, and there's an option there. It says star this document or add to starred. And see how number 3 and number 4 have little stars next to them? Number 3 says staff assignments and number 4 says class calendar. Those have stars, and that way, A, you can see them a little bit better as you're scrolling through your list of folders and files, and B, right next to the starred item there, on that left-hand menu, there's a menu that says, there's an item that says starred. If you click on that, you'll only see the files and folders that you have starred. It's kind of like adding it to favorites, you know, on your photos, for example, on your phone, you can add it to favorites. Same idea. You add it to starred, and then you only see the starred items when you click on the starred menu item. So that's good too. So those are 3: asterisks, numbering them, and adding stars so that you can find them later as well. And the last one is one of my favorites, is to give it a little color. So let's go back up here and I'll show you. Hopefully you can hear me okay. If you see how file number 3, right up, let's see there. File number 3 is red. And you can add color to a folder by highlighting the folder, right-clicking, again, Control plus click on a Mac or just right-click, and you'll get that whole separate menu. See that menu that's right? It starts with open with, share, get link. That's a whole separate menu full of all different things that you can do to that folder. So there's an option there. It says change color, and you can add a little color to your folder item. And that folder, that way, once it has a little bit of color, it's easier to find as well. Just keeps it nicely organized. I particularly like to give just a few folders some color, because then I can really grab them and pick them out. But, and then leave the rest gray, the ones that I don't use as well. But other people like to, you know, go crazy and give every single folder a color. The only other idea I have about color is a great way to find things. And so let's say you add, you make Spanish 6 purple. Then I would use that kind of as your color theme and make Spanish, you know, like let's say on your Google Classroom, make the banner purple. And then any type of color that you add to a document, make that purple. Any type of color, you know, color copies that you make, add a little purple. So kind of it's a nice way for the students to figure out which class is which. Remember, it's not only you trying to keep your classes organized, it's the students, right? Exactly. So those are my 6 or 7 tips. I hope they've been helpful. I am really glad you came here this morning. Like I said, I come every Saturday morning live to Facebook, and I just, 10, 15 minutes with some tips, some ideas, and I would love to hear from you. Please let me know if there's something you'd like me to cover or something that is confusing to you that I'd be happy to help you work out. I have a new free resource that I'd love to share with everybody. It's kind of related to Google Drive. It's about Google Classroom, and it's a year-end checklist of how to wrap your year up right, make sure that you don't lose any resources, make sure that you are organizing things, but that you're closing up your classroom correctly so that, like I said, so you don't lose anything, and so that you are all ready to go for next year. So this way, you want to make sure you close that classroom up, because if you don't, the students still have access to the classroom when you think you're done with it. If you don't archive it, the students are still in there and they can still have access to your resources, and they still have access to all of the chat and the units and everything. So it's really important to wrap it up right. And it's a free resource. Please feel free to click right there. That link is live on the screen, or you can just go to either of my social media profiles and it's pinned up at the top. So thanks everybody for coming. Happy Saturday, and I hope you found this helpful. Just let me know if, please feel free to write me or let me know if there's anything else I can do. All right, everybody, take care. Bye.